What's good, everybody? Old Papa G here, and today's video we're going to be covering Shaman as a PvP guide, obviously. I'm going to be going over Elemental and going to be going over Resto. I'm not going to cover Enhancement in this video because as of right now they're really not utilized in pretty much any PvP format, so I'm only going to cover the two that actually matter for right now. So that being said, I'm going to jump into the talent builds first, but just so you know what I'm covering in the video, I'm going to be covering talents, PvP talents, Covenant's Conduits, Soul Binds, Legendary items, and the best race that you can choose for Alliance and for Horde. And that's about it. And before I start, I just want to say I greatly appreciate everyone that's been supporting my channel. And if you haven't subbed to my channel, if you could, it really would be much appreciated. And like I said, I just want to thank everybody that does support my page. Now, that being said, let's jump into the talents. First, I'm going to be covering Elemental. So first on the list is Echo of the Elements. Lava Burst now has 2 charges. Effects that reset its remaining cooldown will instead grant 1 charge. You're going to notice a trend here that everything's all about Lava Burst and Flame Shock because they work together by the ticks from from Flame Shock's dot helps the charges of Lava Burst. You're going to see everything go hand in hand. Next up we have Echoing Shock. Shock the target for 255 elemental damage and create... That was a cool frog mount. Sorry about that. Shock the target for 255 elemental damage and create an ancestral echo, causing your next damage or healing spell to be cast a second time 1 second later for free. This is obviously big because you're essentially getting 2 for 1. That's why this is the preferred pick. Next we have Earth Shield. Earth Shield is the preferred choice for all three Shaman builds, whether you're Enhancement, Elemental, or Resto. This is the way to go. It's excellent passive healing, so what it does is protects the target with an Earthen Shield, increasing your healing on them by 20% and healing them for 289 when they take damage. This heal can only occur once every few seconds, maximum 9 charges. 9 charges is a lot of charges. This is excellent passive healing, and you definitely want the increased healing on the target by 20%. Next up we have Master of the Elements. Casting Lava Burst increases the damage of your next nature, physical, or frost spell by 20%. So basically anything in your arsenal, because they have all 3 of those. This is definitely the preferred choice for 20% on your next hit, which could be literally anything you want, whether it's Flame Shock, Earth Shock, Earthquake, it really doesn't matter. They all get the benefit. Next we have Nature's Guardian. When your health is brought below 35%, you instantly heal for 20% of your maximum health. Cannot occur more than once every 45 seconds. Obviously this is huge. 20% of your maximum health, you'll sit somewhere around 35k, so you'll basically drop from 35% all the way back up to about 60%, so this is definitely nice to have. Next we have Primal Elementalist. Your Earth, Fire, Storm elementals are drawn from primal elements, 80% more powerful than regular elementals, with additional abilities, and you gain direct control over them. That's actually huge because now you get to use their abilities. Obviously you have 2 elementals that you can use, which is Fire Elemental, which can now be used in Arena. It used to not be able to. And your Earth Elemental, so this is a huge deal. And lastly, we have Ascendance. This was also chosen in BFA, so it should be no surprise here. Transform into a Flame Ascendance for 15 seconds, replacing Chain Lightning with Lava Beam, removing the cooldown of Lava Burst, which is huge, and increasing the damage of Lava Burst by an amount equal to your critical strike chance. When you transform into the Flame Ascendant, instantly cast the Lava Burst at all enemies affected by Flame Shock and refresh your Flame Shock duration by 18 seconds. Like I said, as you can see here, Flame Shock and Lava Burst are the trend. They're pretty much your strongest hitting abilities overall, and this really just helps you get Lava Burst off immediately, which is what you want. That's where your big burst comes from. They could still, even with the nerf that has happened, they could still 2-hit KO with it when the right crits happen and everything, so it's definitely good to have. Next, we have Grounding PvP talents we're going to cover. Next, we have Grounding Totem. This is a no-brainer. Summons an air totem with 50 health at the feet of the caster that will redirect all harmful spells cast on the nearby party or raid to itself. Will not redirect area of effect spells, which makes sense. But this is huge because now you could get a CC off, you could stop a stun, you could stop a fear. This is great. Next up, we have Lightning Lasso. This is definitely another preferred choice. This is giving you another CC. Grips the target in lightning, stunning and dealing 2,700 nature damage over 5 seconds while the target is lassoed. You can move while channeling. So this is an excellent extra CC. And lastly, Control of Lava. This replaces Lava Surge, Flame Shock. This used to help Lava Burst, but now it just is for Flame Shock instead. So what it does, Flame Shock's damage increased by 30%. Your Flame Shock's damage over time has a 10% chance to reset remaining cooldown of Lava Burst and increase its damage by 15%, stacking up to 3 times. So again, as we went over in the first talent, all it's going to do, instead of affecting the cooldown, it's going to just grant you an additional charge. So that's what it's going to do instead. So now we fully went over Elemental, so the next step is to go over Restoration. I'm pretty sure I don't have my talent filled for this, but I know what it is off the top of my head, and I'm just going to fill it really quick. Yep, I don't have it. So it's going to be 3. And grounding. Tidebringer. Sky Fury. Okay. So, like I said, I knew it off the top of my head. It was real quick. So here we go. First, we have, well, actually, first of all, what I want to say, Resto Shaman is right outside of the S tier right now. The only 2 healers that are better than them are Discipline Priest and Resto Druid, and they're just right outside of the A tier. They recently had buffs done to them. Before, they relied heavily on hard cast healing, which is never what you want, because if you get kicked, then you can't cast anything. But now their instant healing has really helped them a lot. So like Riptide has seen almost 100% increase in healing, which is an instant one. Obviously, Healing Stream Totem is baseline. They have other things to get them out of that scenario now, which is great. So first up, we have Unleash Life. Unleashes Elemental Force of Life, healing a friendly target for 747 and increasing the effect of Shaman's next direct heal by 35%. This is only a 15-second cooldown, and that's a fat increase by 35%. You definitely want this. Next, Echo of Elements. Riptide, Healing Stream Totem, and Lava Burst now have 2 charges. Effects that reset the remaining cooldown will instead grant a charge. So again, before we went over this, it only had Lava Burst on the list. Now it has your healing moves, which is great. Next, Spirit Wolf. While transforming to Ghost Wolf, you gain 5% increased movement speed and 5% damage reduction every second, stacking up to 4 times. So that's really a 20% reduced damage, which is huge. It used to be in BFA when you were in Ghost Wolf, your self-healing was automatic. So this is their way of replacing it. So that way it's not as a full-blown loss. Next, we have Earthen Wall Totem. Summons a totem with about 10k health for 15 seconds. 138 damage from each attack against allies within 10 yards of the totem is redirected to this totem. So this is good. It's getting the damage off of your allies along with yourself, so this is a great choice. Next, we went over Nature's Guardian. I'll do it again, though. When your health is brought below 35% health, you instantly heal for 20% of your maximum health. Can't occur more than 45 seconds, once every 45 seconds. So again, when you're sitting at about 30k health, that's going to help you. That guy's going to try to kill me now. Get away from me. So because of that, you'll probably be brought back to about 70% health on that, which is great. Next, we have Flash Flood. It's a passive ability. When you consume tidal waves, the cast time of your next heal is reduced by 20%. So obviously you're going to want to do one of your bigger heals to reduce the cast time. And lastly, we went over Ascendance. We should know what it does, but you transform into an Ascendant, duplicating all healing you deal for 15 seconds and immediately healing for 3,400. Ascendant healing is distributed evenly among allies within 20 yards. So you're basically getting a full AoE heal for every single target heal that you do. Now for the last thing, the PvP ones, we went over Grounding Totem. What it does is you summon a totem, and it basically redirects a move to the totem, so you can stop a stun or a fear because it'll be redirected to the totem. Next, we have Tidebringer. Every 8 seconds, the cast time of your next chain heal is reduced by 50%, and jump distance increased by 100%. Maximum 2 charges. So this is beautiful. It's every 8 seconds. And lastly, Sky Fury Totem. Summons a fire totem with 50 health at the feet of the caster for 15 seconds. That increases the critical effect of damage and healing spells of all nearby allies within 40 yards by 20% for 15 seconds. This is actually huge because you essentially could keep bringing this out. It's 15 seconds at last, so essentially half of the cooldown it won't be on the field, so you could always bring this out. This also can be brought in for Elemental. It's not one of the preferred choices, but it could still be utilized because obviously that's a nice utility for your team overall. 20% increase for the whole team, which is great. So now that we went over the talents for both, we're going to go over the races first and then the Covenant and all that good stuff. So the first thing we're going to go over and get it out of the way are the preferred races to choose for Alliance and Horde. For Horde, the clear-cut winner is Orc as usual for the reason of hardiness. The duration of stun effects are reduced by an additional 20%, and you also get your other racial, which is Blood Fury, which is going to increase attack power and intellect by 122 for 15 seconds, which basically just increases your damage by a little bit. So they are definitely the preferred choice. Now when it comes down to Alliance, you really have two choices. They're both equally good, and they both happen to be Dwarf. Your regular Dwarf and your Dark Iron Dwarf. If you choose regular Dwarf, you're going to get Stone Form, which removes all harmful poisons, diseases, curses, magic, and bleed effects, and reduces all physical damage taken by 10% for 8 seconds. So this is more of a defensive ability, where if you pick Dark Iron, you get Fire Blood, which removes all poisons, disease, cures, magic, and bleed effects, and increases your primary stat by 183, and an additional 61 for each effect removed last 8 seconds. So that's going to be a little bit more offensive, where the other one's more defensive. So now I'm going to go over the Covenants, Conduits, and all that stuff, but first I'm going to go over Resto and all their abilities, and then followed by Elemental. So first off, for Resto, you're going to choose Venthyr. These are the default abilities that you get, which is Door of Shadows and Chain Harvest. So what Door of Shadows does, you went through the shadows appearing at the target's location. So you basically put where you want it and you teleport to it. It's similar to a Warlock portal, and it only has a 1-minute recharge time, so it's actually really good for mobility. The next default ability that you're going to receive is Chain Harvest. So what this does is send a wave of anema at the target, which then jumps to an additional nearby target, deals shadow damage to up to 5 enemies, and reduces health to up to 5 allies. For each target critically struck, the cooldown of Chain Harvest is reduced by 5 seconds. So again, this is another one of the main reasons why you're choosing Venthyr for Resto. Venthyr, like I said, is the preferred choice. Necrolord has seen to do well too, but for right now, Venthyr is going to be the preferred. So the preferred person that you're going to pick for Venthyr is Naja the Mistblade. As you can see here, this is your Soulbind and Conduit tree. This is the exact path that you're going to take, and I'm going to go over the abilities that you get for choosing this path. So here you can see all of the Soulbind and Conduits ability you're going to receive for choosing this, the tree with Naja the Mistblade, and I'm going to go over each ability. First up, we have Familiar Predicaments. The duration of incoming interrupt, snare, and root effects are reduced by 25%, followed up by Thrill Seeker. Okay, so what Thrill Seeker does is, while in combat, you gain a stack of Thrill Seeker every 2 seconds, or 4 stacks on killing an enemy. At 40 stacks, Thrill Seeker is consumed to grant you Euphoria, increasing your haste by 20% for 10 seconds. Thrill Seeker decays rapidly while you're not in combat. This is great. The additional haste will reduce your casting time, and that's actually really good for healers, especially because they have, especially Resto Shamans, they have a lot of hard cast, so this helps with that. Next up, we have the Clear Cut winner, which is Refreshing Waters. Your Healing Surge is 15% more effective on yourself. Obvious choice there. Now, we have 3 Potency Conduits at the top. They're all good. So first up, we have Lavish Harvest. The critical strike chance of your Chain Harvest is increased by 17%. Next, we have Swirling Currents. Healing Stream Totem increases the healing of your next 3 Healing Surge, Healing Wave, or Riptide spells by 40%. That's huge. This is really, really good. And next up, we have Embrace of Earth. Earth Shield increases your healing done to the target by an additional 12%. That includes the passive healing when they're getting hit, along with the increased healing to the target, so that's excellent. Now, for the last 2 things, we have Crippling Hex. Enemies affected by your Hex deal 8% reduced damage for 8 seconds after Hex is removed. And finally, we have our legendary choice, which is Earthen Harmony. Earth Shield healing is increased by 300%. If your Earth Shield target is below 50% health, and Healing Wave adds a stack of Earth Shield to your target up to 9 maximum stacks. This is your clear-cut choice. I'm laughing as I'm reading it because it's just so good. It's actually ridiculous how good it is. And now that we went fully over Resto, we're going to cover Elemental. So the preferred choice for Elemental is going to be Necrolord. Unfortunately, they're both not Venthyr or both not Necrolord, which is really convenient because you can't switch back and forth. But again, this is the preferred choice, and we're going to get into all the good stuff about it. So first up, I'm going to go over the default abilities that you get. First being Primordial Wave. Blast your target with a Primordial Wave, dealing 990 shadow damage, and apply Flame Shock to an enemy or heal an ally for 990. Your next Lava Burst will also hit all affected by your flame shock by 100% of the normal damage. This is similar to Ascendance. What that does, how everybody with flame shock gets hit by a lava burst. That's why this is so critical. Obviously, flame shock and lava burst are your go-to combos, so this is really good and why Necrolord is chosen. Next up, we have Fleshcraft. It forms a shield of flesh and bone over 4 seconds that absorbs damage equal to 20% of your maximum health. If you do this near a corpse, it actually increases to 50% of your maximum health. And one of the Soulbind abilities works hand in hand with Fleshcraft, which I'm going to get into now. So the preferred person to pick for Necrolord is going to be Plate Deviser Marilith. This is the Soulbind tree that I'm going to go over, and the abilities that you get for doing this path. Marilith is always the preferred choice if you're going to pick Necrolord, and I'm going to get into the abilities now that come along with it. So we have a lot of abilities to go over, and here are all the Soulbind and Conduit abilities that you're going to get for choosing that pathway with Marilith. So first up, as I mentioned with Fleshcraft, there's an ability that goes hand in hand with it, which is Ultimate Form. While channeling Fleshcraft, you are immune to crowd control. Finishing the full channel grants you another 4 seconds of crowd control immunity. This is obviously fantastic for PvP. It's a no-brainer. Next up, we have Tumbling Waves. Primordial Wave has a 20% chance to not incur its cooldown, so that's excellent. Next up, we have Call of Flame. Fire Elemental lasts 15% longer. Obviously, when you choose the one talent as well, you get to control your Fire Elemental a little bit better too, so they work hand in hand. Next, we have Earth and Sky. Earth Shock and Elemental Blast damage are increased by 7% for each stack of Fulmination they discharge. 7% is actually a lot, especially with Earth Shock. Earth Shock is one of your harder hitting moves, probably top 3, if not borderline top 4. So any increase to it is really, really good. Next up, Refreshing Waters. We also went over this with Resto. Your Healing Surge is 15% more effective on yourself. That's great for self-healing. And the final two things. We have Crippling Hex, which we also went over. Enemies affected by your Hex deal 8% reduced damage for 8 seconds after Hex is removed. And finally, your legendary item, which is the clear-cut choice here, is going to be Deeply Rooted. Okay, so it has a 5% chance to activate Ascendance for 6 seconds. I know 5% chance sounds like a little bit low, but Ascendance is so good that if it procs at all, you're really, really benefiting, so that's why it's the preferred choice. Alright everybody, that's going to be it for today's Shaman video. I hope you guys have been enjoying the content. I'm really trying to inform everybody. Obviously, it's one day until Shadowlands comes, so if you're going to be Shaman, I hope this really helps you out a lot. If you guys have been enjoying my content, again, I would really greatly appreciate any sub to my channel. I've been really appreciative of everybody that's been supporting me, and just thank you to everybody. And as always guys, thank you for tuning in.